Hello, I'm Jamie Younger, and this is If You Knew Me, a podcast about the inner lives of women. Most weeks on this show, we walk into the heart and mind of one woman. Some weeks, we offer interview-based episodes with experts on themes that are relevant to women's lives. This week, we have a great story, but before we dive in, I want to invite you to join me on Sunday, September 25th for our first ever live online event. The theme is major life changes, and my guest is Sister Monica Claire. Let me help you out and say this event is for you if, one, you listen to our episode with Sister Monica Claire, and you would definitely appreciate meeting her and getting to ask her some questions, or two, you're looking for a reboot, a refresh, a pause, or an opportunity to look at your life anew and its many possibilities. Sister Monica will talk about her journey of leaving Hollywood and becoming a progressive nun. That's very likely not the major life change that you're going to make, but so much of what she experienced is relevant to anyone wanting and willing to step into a better life. Sister Monica is open and warm and super excited to spend time with this community of podcast listeners. Tickets are $9. The link to buy tickets is in the show notes. Patrons of this podcast, so people who support this show with a monthly donation, receive a free ticket to the event, as well as future events. I would love to see you and spend time with you on September 25th. I hope you can join us. Check out the show notes. Now, on to today's episode. Most weeks on If You Knew Me, we walk into the heart and mind of one woman. Our guest can choose to share her real name or to stay anonymous. This week, we hear from Jena. That's her real name. Jena is a nurse. She works in a maternity ward. She's also an online sex worker who goes by the stage name Nurse Jena. A few years ago, Jena learned that her oldest son had a rare and incurable condition. Up to that point, Jena had been working long hours to support her kids as a single mom. After her son's medical bills started piling up, she realized she needed to start making a lot more money, and fast. Jena's story is entitled, "Nobody Wants to See This Mom Do That."
I would say that if you knew me, you would know that I'm a very dedicated mother and hardworking person, and I like to be successful and strive at anything I do. And I always put my family and my children first above all else. And that is kind of how I started down this journey of doing online sex work. My oldest son was diagnosed with a very rare chronic illness that took about actually almost 3 years to get a diagnosis. He had started getting sick at a young age, around 8 or 9 years old. And after many doctor's visits and being told that there was nothing wrong with him, we kind of let it go for a while. But he progressively got worse to the point where he couldn't walk anymore. And he was in a wheelchair. So then I, being a nurse by trade, that's what my career is, my job. I knew that something was wrong and I needed to press further. I wasn't happy with the answers I was getting. So after much pressure on our physicians, we were able to kind of dig deeper and end up finding a diagnosis for him after many, many years. Due to this really rare chronic disease he has, he's about 1 in a million children that have it. I've had to seek medical care for him outside of my state because where I live, we don't have the facilities to treat him for that since it's so rare. So having to travel frequently for doctor's appointments, long distance, he has lots of medications he takes on a daily basis, up to about 15 a day. And then monthly infusions that he gets that cost upwards of $80,000 a month. Insurance does cover a lot of that, but a lot of it's not covered. And after, only about 6 months of trying to deal with all of this and the financial burden it was placing on myself, being a single mom, trying to work as a nurse for 5 days, 12-hour shifts a week, I knew that I had to do something else. I just didn't know what it was. My significant other had seen or heard about women who were doing online sex work and how lucrative it was. Especially during the pandemic, it was very hard being at work at the hospital, working, 4 or 5 12-hour shifts a week, coming home to my sick, immunocompromised child, and also being able to be there for him for all of his doctor's appointments and his treatments. My initial reaction was, there's no way I'm going to do that. Nobody wants to see his mom do that. I definitely didn't have the confidence to think I would be successful at it. But he encouraged me, and I agreed that I would give it a shot because I was willing to really do anything to make sure that I could keep my son getting the medical treatment he needed, but also be there for him as well as my other children. So I initially just kind of started my platform just very meekly. I had no idea what I was doing. I had no training. All I was doing is researching online, watching YouTube videos, and trying to figure out how this whole business worked. But within the first 2 weeks, I had made more than I do working 1 week as a nurse, 5 12-hour shifts a week. And so I realized really quickly that this was something that provided me a lot of time to be home with my family, be home with my children, help my son, and was becoming very lucrative. And steadily over the first 6 months of doing this, I quadrupled what I was making. And by about 8 months in, I was already making about what would equate to 6 figures a year. Something as a nurse I could only do if I was working, travel nursing on a contract, maybe 5 days a week out of the state away from my children or something like that. Even then, probably not the same amount of money. The biggest part that has been really hard to deal with around doing online sex work, though, has been the stigma, the judgment, the criticism that I've received from peers, my friends, my family, and just having to, remind myself and justify the reason I'm doing this in the bigger picture. I've had, family tell me that they're ashamed of me. They can't believe I would do this to my children, that this is selfish and I'm hurting them, even though I've tried to explain that I'm doing this for them, not to them. I'm very careful in what I do. I try very hard to keep my children safe and out of the public eye as far as my career, and try and protect them as much as I can. Obviously, it's not perfect. In order to grow and be successful, I do have to put myself out there, and there is some component of that. But I do have a very open and healthy relationship with my oldest son, and he knows about it, and we talk and communicate about it frequently so that, he understands why and what's going on, and I'm always open to answer any questions he has. When he first found out, he was pretty upset. He didn't understand why. I tried to explain to him, why I was doing this, not just because it provides a lot of time with my family and being able to take care of him, but also the financial security that it provides us. At first, he was frustrated because, having a chronic disease at only 13 years old, you're already very burdened with the heavy weight of that and wishing you could just be a normal kid and not have to be sick all the time like everybody else. I think this initially added more frustration and guilt on him because he felt like if he wasn't sick, he wouldn't have to do this. We spent a lot of time talking and me reassuring him that I'm not mad at him for this. I would do a number of other things in order to be able to provide for them and take care of him. I'm not ashamed of it at all. I tell him that, being a nurse and knowing how the human body works and how anatomy works and working in the nursing field that I work in, which is labor and delivery, I see that sexuality is a very human thing. Nobody should be ashamed of their sexuality, being a sexual being. Sex isn't just about procreating. It is about pleasure. And I talk very openly with him as an adult like that. I don't try to sugarcoat things. He's hitting puberty and he's potentially exploring his own body and his own sexuality. And I try to encourage him to, be safe about it and be mindful and but also that it's okay and it's not shameful and he doesn't have to be embarrassed about that. I was extremely terrified. Putting yourself out there like that is very vulnerable. I've never been that vulnerable before. And to be completely honest, before that, I had been in a very monogamous and quote, vanilla, I guess is what the term people would use, marriage. And our marriage was not based around sexual pleasure or enjoyment at all. We had our children. And then other than that, our lives were very scheduled, I should say. We didn't have a lot of sex or pleasure in our relationship. And I didn't realize how much of that I was missing until I started really exploring myself sexually after that relationship. But I still was very insecure, very vulnerable. I was scared. I was scared of what, people might say or think about me, the repercussions it could potentially have on my career as a nurse. But I was also excited for something new. And I was really focused on the fact that all I really needed and wanted out of this was to be able to financially and emotionally provide for my family. The sex work community, the other women that I have met alone, just networking through this business, are amazing. These are a group of women, all different shapes and sizes, all different ethnicities, life backgrounds, and they're all amazing. Very, very, very rarely do I run into somebody who is judgmental and non-supportive and just kind of out for themselves in this career, this community. Hundreds of women I've worked with over the last couple of years. Some of them I've made really, really great friends with. We, meet a few times a year just to kind of hang out and work together. We come to each other when we have family problems as well. And there's a group chat of us of like 250 women, and we chat on a daily basis just about life in general, not even just work-related things. So I've gained a whole new community of friends and, what I call family in the sex work industry that I would have never had before, a support system. That's amazing. I've also gained a lot of self-confidence and this ability to view myself in a way that I don't really care what others think about me necessarily. It's allowed me to have a very open and honest relationship with my teenager, which has been amazing because I didn't have that growing up. My dad and I were pretty open and honest with each other for the most part, but it definitely wasn't like this. And my mom, growing up in a third world country, going to an all-girls Catholic school her whole life, definitely did not have an open relationship with me, especially anything that had to do with even just my own body. I remember starting my period when I was 13 and not even knowing I was on my period because my mom had never even discussed that with me. And so my upbringing was just very different. And I always knew that I didn't want to have the same relationship with my kids. I want them to be able to come to me about anything. And realistically, I know they always won't, but I also want them to know that I'm a safe space and that it's okay to feel your feelings and experience things, even if they're not necessarily what I would recommend or what I would want for them. I don't want them to ever feel like I'm going to judge them because I've been judged so much in my life. And so it's been really empowering for me in that sense as well. I did start initially thinking I would just maybe post some pictures, do some very soft core, as that they would call it, type of videos. But as I got through this business and saw how it was growing and where things were heading, I knew that in order to keep myself relevant and at the top of essentially the food chain of this very ebb and flow type of business, that I had to progress to more things. My partner and I are also open in the lifestyle. So we are swingers. We also at times have had open relationships within our relationship. So that has grown and built itself and allowed me to build my platform to where now I do very explicit content. Aside from just marketing my explicit content, I have a brand that I'm growing I sell calendars and I get paid to promote other brands. And so there's a lot to it than just making some videos or pictures that I post on a paid platform that people have to subscribe to see. I choose who I want to work with. I choose my partners, who I want to create content with. The other females I've worked with, we get together and we'll take pictures or make social media content that we can help promote each other with. I also train and coach lots of new women who decide they want to get into the business, and men, actually. I also have a male that works under me now. I've probably trained and coached about 15 different people in the last 2 years. I also help them grow. I coach them throughout their journey, because that's one thing I didn't really have when I started. I was really like a deer in headlights, as they'd say. I had no idea what I was doing, and I was just trying to see what other people were doing and pick up on things and figure things out. And it definitely took me a lot longer to get going because of that. I definitely have a moral internal struggle that happens on a regular basis, how this is going to affect my future, more importantly, my children's future. How I have put myself out there in the world is already out there. There's not really anything I can do to take it back. I considered how it would affect my children, but I didn't consider the long-term impact of it when I did start. And it's something that I think about frequently. There is a little bit of guilt there. There is a little bit of internal pain that I struggle with at times about, am I doing right by my children, and am I doing what was best for them, even though I have a lot of reasons to justify why I'm doing what I'm doing. I just try to remind myself that at the end of the day, I'm a good mom, and this doesn't define who I am as a person. It doesn't define who I am as a parent. And as long as I continue to raise my children with an open mind and open conversations and good values about treating people based off of the kind of person they are, not what they look like or what they do, that they'll grow as they get older. And, like I said, I've met hundreds of women, the majority of them all mothers, who all deeply care about their children and are amazing moms. And I don't see them as somebody who does sex work. I see them as my friend and the person who is a great mom and provides for their children. I do identify as bisexual, so it has given me the confidence to feel okay about that, to know that it's okay to love a woman and a man. I did grow up very religious, and so having that a man and a woman are the only people who lay in bed together kind of thought process instilled to me for a very long time. It was hard for me to kind of feel comfortable accepting my sexuality. But not only have I accepted it, I've fully embraced it, and I've allowed myself to take it to levels that most people never see in their lifetimes. And it's been very empowering. It's given me confidence in my body. I know there's so much going on nowadays about what pretty looks like as far as what size you are. I would say I'm an average woman. I'm not overweight, but I'm not very skinny. And, having 3 kids, my body's changed significantly over time. And I had to really learn to embrace that about myself and not focus on, I had to look a certain way for people to find me attractive. It's taught me to, stick up for myself in certain situations and focus on what's important to me and what brings me happiness in my life, and not just about pleasing others. I'm a very big people pleaser, and a lot of my friends and family will say, you don't know how to say no, or you don't do anything for yourself, and you're always putting everyone else before yourself. And I don't regret that at all. That is who I am, and I'm happy to do so, and it makes me happy to serve others. But this has allowed me to find something that I really enjoy, even if it's just a little bit once in a while, a very small part of my life, but it's something that I've allowed myself to kind of be a little selfish about and make sure that my needs are being met here. I mean, I thought I knew what good sex was before, but I had no idea until I got to this point in my life and I started exploring myself sexually a lot more. I mean, now looking back at that, it's almost comical what I thought, good sex was. And so I felt for a long time that I was doing this act just for a purpose, for something else, for someone else, not for myself. And now I've allowed myself to be a little bit selfish here and say, I only want to do the things that I enjoy. I only want to do the things that make me feel good. Otherwise, I'm not going to do them. I'm not going to just do them for somebody else. I know that realistically, I'm not going to do this forever, and that can come and go. Embracing my sexuality and being selfish with that and doing what I want, that's something that I'm going to carry with me forever. But I didn't really discover that until I started headed down this path. When this path is over, I still will have that. I'll still have the sexual piece of it. I'll still have all that I've gained from it as far as my confidence and my sexuality. So yeah, I kind of started it so that I could service other people, provide for my family, do all these other things. But in that, I found something that was very personal to me, very joyful for me. I feel like if the platform wasn't there and I had found this, I would be doing this anyways. If I'm doing it, why not put that out there? Why not benefit from it in another way? My parents both worked 3 jobs and they worked so hard, but they were almost absent for my childhood. And I always remember looking back saying, I don't want that. I want my kids to be the kids whose parents come to everything because I watched those other kids have that. So when I was presented with the opportunity to be able to do that, that was me kind of being selfish saying, I'm going to take this risk. I'm going to deal with the consequences of it so that I can have this time with my children that I want that I'll never get back. So before I was working anywhere from 4 to 5 days a week, 12-hour shifts, usually from 6 or 7 o'clock at night till 6 or 7 in the morning. So I'm working all night long while my kids are either staying with a grandparent or another parent or a nanny. I'd come home in the morning, have to go to sleep and sleep all day. I'd have a nanny who took them to school, picked them up from school. I might get up in time in the evening to cook dinner and have dinner with them, but then I'd have to turn around and do it all over again. And so I got very little time with them, a couple of days a week, but I do share custody of my children as well. So I couldn't always accommodate my work schedule to not work on the days that I have them. And so there was a lot of days where I had to work when I had them, and I might feel like I got 6 hours a week with them. And so that's kind of like what my crazy hectic schedule was. Now I work maybe 4 12-hour shifts a month as opposed to a week. My schedule is very flexible. Now when I have my children, I get to spend almost every single day I have with them, get to take them on trips and vacations and even just get that extra quality time with them. I don't have a nanny anymore who has to take them to school or pick them up or take them to all their sports and stuff. I get to do that. I get to coach their sports now, something I would have never been able to be involved in before with my work schedule. I get to be there for every single one of my son's monthly infusions. If I want to be or I have him, I get to take him to all of his doctor's appointments. I don't have to worry about scheduling an appointment around my work schedule. I don't even have to worry about that now. I don't even have to look at my calendar. I can say, yeah, we'll take that appointment. That's fine. And just not having that stress and the worry of that and how I'm going to get him there and how I can be there for those important things has just been such a huge weight off my shoulders. So a lot of the work I do now, I can just do from the ease of my phone while I'm home. I usually put the kids to bed at night and then sit in bed and catch up on work for the day, a couple hours in the evening. Or now during the day while they're at school, I'll attend any meetings I have. I actually only have to make content very rarely because I have so much built up, kind of stockpiled, I guess, that I'm able to maybe make content once a week. And I usually just do that on a day that I don't have the kids or they're gone for the day and I spend that time taking pictures or whatever it is I need to do. I think probably the one that sticks out in my mind the most that had the biggest impact was when my peers at work at the time were trying to get me in trouble or fired for my content. I was pretty new into it. I had maybe been doing it for 6 months. I really didn't know much about how it was going to affect my career. I was trying really hard to hide it, but I had made some mistakes along the way, and I had made one that allowed somebody to find out about it. And these women were not only harassing me at work about it, but they were at the nurse's station sharing my content with their coworkers. It was pretty humiliating, but I was very lucky and blessed to have a boss at the time who was very supportive of me. And she's like, I don't care what you do outside of work. As you come to work every day, you're great at what you do. And as long as it doesn't interfere with your job here and you're not making content at work, she's like, I don't care what you do outside of work. That's none of my business. And so eventually she put the kibosh on the whole thing. And it got to the point where we were having to actually tell my peers and my coworkers at the time, if you don't stop talking about this and stop harassing Jena, she's going to have to file sexual harassment claims against you. It was a pretty big deal. It brought a lot of stress on my life. I spent many days crying about it and worrying to my significant other what was going to happen. But luckily, it turned out in my favor. And it also made me realize that I did have people in my life who were super supportive, and I didn't need to be ashamed of what I was doing. And it didn't make me less of a nurse or less of a coworker or less of a mom or a sister or a daughter or, partner. If anything, the things I've gained from it has brought some really positive things to my life.
Thanks so much for listening to this week's episode. Jena has been a dedicated nurse for 9 years. She lives on the West Coast with her husband and 3 children. I invite you to sign up for our weekly newsletter and also to consider supporting this show. When you become a patron, you get tickets to events like the one on September 25th, valuable resources, and also that great feeling of supporting something that you believe in. Links to become a patron and sign up for our newsletter are in the show notes. This podcast is produced by me, Jamie Younger, and my husband, Pete Herkmans. Thanks so much for listening to If You Knew Me. We'll be back with you next week.